I wanted to thank Devin for the introduction and obviously for Kelowna General Hospital's leadership in supporting this. Al and Irene, thank you very much for hosting me tonight and for your incredible efforts around this initiative and the passion that you've already shown. I met Al in December, and he basically just kind of said, "What can I do to help?" Which is pretty incredible, and I know that there's several of you in this room who feel the same way. It's also amazing to have the Kelowna General Hospital Foundation involved, and as it turns out, my good friend Peter, we were up in Silver Star together last weekend, and we were talking about this event, and it's really exciting to know how closely knit this foundation is. And finally, the Canadian Mental Health Association in Kelowna. Sheila and Mike and their group, Melissa's here as well, have just been putting in a tremendous amount of hours for this project, and it's really incredible to see it come alive here. So I'm a child and adolescent psychiatrist, but really my work has been working with homeless kids. About a month ago, I attended, unfortunately, a ceremony for a young man that we lost. He was 26, and it was his 38th overdose that finally did it for him. And what was really incredible about him is that we all thought he was basically invincible. He'd overdosed so many times that we just thought there was no way that he was actually going to die. He had schizophrenia, and what was neat about him was that his delusion was that he was a rock star. And some folks really struggle with their delusional beliefs because they're really terrifying. They can be really scary. They can be really uncomfortable. But for him, the belief that he was sort of on a stage was a really powerful experience for him. And we really came to love hanging out with him, and he would be, just jamming on Granville Street. And I have a video that I've kept of him doing that before he passed away. But he was from Kelowna. And the thing about him was that he just wanted to come home. And the hard thing for us is that we were never really able to do that for him. And that's, I think at the heart of it, it's why we're doing this work, is that I remember being on a radio show about 5 years ago in Vancouver, and we're talking about the homeless kids and the struggles that we had, and this initiative that we'd started by having psychiatrists working at a shelter, and how we were finally able to see young people who'd been having mental health problems for years and years and struggling not to get the help they needed. And they took calls in while I was on this radio show, and it was a lady from Salmon Arm. And Salmon Arm is close to my heart because my wife's from there, and we spend our summers in Salmon Arm. I just love it. My in-laws just sold their house, and we've lost the pool, and we've lost the lake view, and anyway. But it was a caller from Salmon Arm, and the lady said, "I have a 19-year-old daughter. Would it be okay if I drove her down and dropped her off at the shelter? Because I can't get her help in Salmon Arm." And the difficulty for me as a psychiatrist, just like Fernando, is that we are constantly getting calls and emails from parents looking for help. I can't tell you how many times I've had an email or a call from someone that starts with, "So my daughter is 19, or my son is 21, and I don't know where to go." We know that in BC, the population of Kelowna is about 150,000 people. So if you imagined two towns the size of Kelowna, 300,000 people under the age of 24, struggling annually with mental health and substance use issues in our province. 300,000 people. And that's not a stretch. That's 1 in 5. And that's what it actually looks like. I was sitting at a collaborative meeting with the Assistant Deputy Minister of Health about 3 years ago. And we have very good evidence that there's 130,000 young people in this province annually looking for help, because we had the data from primary care, from addictions, from child and youth mental health. 130,000 actually going to try to get help. And we know that only about half of the kids actually make an attempt. So 260 to 300,000. And so I remember sitting beside the assistant deputy minister and I said, this is new data here in this province. We've got a problem. And we don't have a solution. We don't have a model of care. Because despite knowing that we have that many kids looking for help, there isn't a single name or word associated where those kids can get help in this province. We have to say, go to the emergency room, go to a walk-in clinic, go to child and youth mental health. And it was in that moment that he looked at me and he said, do you have an idea? And I said, yeah. The Australians have been doing it since 2007. It's called Headspace. And it's a brand. It's a one-stop shop. It's a place where you can go for help. And it becomes part of the family lexicon. It becomes part of the language in your home. If you're a young person, if your child needs help, you've got a word for it. So my proposal at the time, and this was working with folks around the province, was for 30 of these sites. And we had a big price tag. And the government came back and said, you're not doing 30, but we'll give you funding for 5. All right, we're still going to do 30. And so we held a competition. We had some key foundations come forward and support us. My Hospital Foundation, the St. Paul's Foundation, the Graham Beck Foundation, which is a national leader in mental health. They all agreed to put money in. The government decided to put money in from the Ministry of Health. The Ministry of Children and Families came on board as a partner. And for the first time in this province, we had groups of people coming together and saying, we are going to make a difference for the population of 12 to 24s in this province. We're not going to split them up. It's not going to be up to 18 and 19 plus. We're going to allow youth to be with youth when they seek help. So that started our journey. 25 communities applied for that funding. And yours was one of the 5 chosen. And it was chosen for a lot of reasons. CMHA Kelowna has their proverbial crap together. It's a solid organization, and they've been doing the work for a long time in this area. But probably more impressionable on us was how strongly the community had come together around this concept. How much the community had identified this as a priority. And so Kelowna, Campbell River, the North Shore, Abbotsford, and Prince George were the first 5 communities selected. Now at the time, we were called the BC Integrated Youth Services Initiative. We were purposefully a really bad name because we wanted to impress on people that we needed to brand this thing. And we took it to discovery groups around the province. We had hundreds of youth and families give us input. We went through all kinds of branding options. We had a branding company support us. We had discovery groups across the country to inform the brand. And what kept coming back was, I don't want the word youth in it. I don't want the word mental health in it. I certainly don't want the word addiction. And please, could we not have sexual health in the title? And so we were left with really kind of looking at a list of words that wouldn't necessarily tell you what the services were, but could actually give you a sort of a higher concept, an idea, something that you could brand with a tagline. Foundry was one of 15 that we rejected. And our branding company came back and said, we want you to look at this one again. And so they came with a list of 5. And I took this list to my 9-year-old, who's now 10. And Anna has a little bit of anxiety. But she was really keen. And I explained the concept. And I said, Anna, what do you think? I gave her the list of 5. And she said, I really like Foundry. And I said, well, help me understand that. Because in my mind, it's like a big factory with, and that's what we think, right? But my 9-year-old has no idea what a foundry is. And she just says, it just sounds right. You're found there. You're found at the foundry. That's what she said. And it's amazing because the youth liked it way more than the adults. And we have all kinds of play on words. We can say, it's where wellness takes shape, it's where you can mold your future, it's where you can find your tools. But the kids just like the fact that it's a word that they have no idea what it means, but somewhere in it, it says found. And that's where we've come up with Find, Forge, Found. And we're really excited about the brand. What's really neat about what we're doing is that, just like in Kelowna, we're bringing partnerships together. Fernando, I think, highlighted that there are a lot of resources in Kelowna, but they're just so difficult to navigate. Bringing organizations together and working under one roof, integrating, working with the local hospital, working with the communities, the schools. This is what's innovative about this. This is what's truly transformative. But we're not only working on the ground with the different sites and the different communities, we're also working with BC Children's Hospital, and we're completely revamping mindcheck.ca. And we're going to be coming up with a website, a portal called eFoundry, which will be like nothing you've ever seen when it comes to engaging young people and educating young people about mental health and substance use. And eFoundry will be linked into all our sites on the ground. So what's really neat about this room full of people is that you are really on the cutting edge of what we think is a tipping point in our province. A moment in time when we will look back and say, that is when we started to prioritize mental health for our young people. I have 3 kids under 10. I'd like to know that 5 years from now, we will be able to say that we have the best mental health system in Canada. I'd like to be able to say that we have the best system in the world. That sounds not Canadian, I know. But knowing that my 3 kids will probably one day walk into Foundry North Shore, I want to know that it's going to be the best darn service they can get. And I'm sure that most of you feel the same way here in Kelowna. So thank you very much for having me. Much appreciated. I'm also going to be, I guess I'm introducing our next person, and really appreciate Nicholas's courage for your presentation. I think what's just amazing working with young people is just seeing how vital and vibrant they can be. But as Nicholas talked about, is how when they're not feeling that way, how they shut down, and how difficult it is as a parent or as someone who loves them to support them in those moments. But I think Nicholas reminded us of what it looks like when someone can come up here and just tell their story. And I think that takes a tremendous amount of courage. I had lived experience as a young person. I had anxiety as a kid, pretty bad anxiety, and then later on I had depression as well. And I think that that has allowed me to understand the challenges. I walked into a doctor's office complaining of back pain, and I walked out with an antidepressant. To this day, I still don't know how that happened. There was nothing for me. There was no support group. There was no education. It was just like, here, you're depressed, take a pill. So we can make a difference. We can do that. We can do better.